Hi, I'm Coach Stewart, and today I'm going to go over the top 5 reasons why players get cut from tryouts. Getting cut from the team is never fun for a player, unless the player didn't want to be there in the first place, but their parents made them, sort of thing. Nonetheless, getting cut is a brutal part of any sport. As a coach, I feel that some schools and clubs don't really do a great job of letting players know where they fall short. Some do. But a player gets cut and all that they're thinking is, I'm not good enough, which is not always the case, but since they most likely weren't given any feedback, they usually lack clarity on what they need to do to be good enough for next season. To be fair to the coaches, part of the reason coaches fail at giving feedback to players is because tryouts are basically organized chaos, and it takes so much brain power to process everything that has happened at tryouts. Coaches do take notes during tryouts, and most of the time they have some sort of scale where they're keeping track of how players perform at each skill, such as passing, hitting, serving, and setting. But there is some hope. After a tryout, but not right after a tryout, the coach should be able to give some specific feedback to a player as to why they didn't make the team. It can be a little awkward, but if you really want to be the best that you can be, asking for a clarification can really go a long way. I would phrase it something like this: what can I be working on between now and next season so that I can make the team next year? Coaches appreciate when players take initiative and also when players ask what they need to be working on to get better. However, I would wait at least 24 hours before approaching the coach. Again, their brains are probably pretty fried from tryouts. But here are 5 reasons why a player may be cut from tryouts. 1. They lack the skill to compete at the level for which they are trying out. Most coaches are looking for a certain level of skill and understanding of the game from their athletes. If coaches take on players who lack skill or understanding, it could really slow the process for the entire team. Number 2, there's just not enough spots on the team. Most teams have a certain number of players that they're willing to take, and there's also a lot more players who are trying out. Not everyone can make the team simply because there's just not enough spots. You really don't want to be on a team with too many people because you're likely to not get enough training if there are too many players, not enough coaches, or even enough courts to even handle a large team. The more players, the less practice time and playing time you're likely to get. Number 3, team chemistry. Sometimes players get cut because during the tryout, they aren't really gelling with the other players that they're playing with. Is this fair? Not always, because it can be difficult to have chemistry with people you've never played with before. But there are times when there's a group of players who instantly have a connection while competing, and coaches like to see that. Communicating on the court can help build that chemistry. Number 4, having a bad attitude. How you act on the court, how you interact with your teammates, and how you respond to getting feedback from your coach can have a big impact on whether or not you make the team. Coaches don't want players who are going to cause problems. It is so important for the success of the team for players to come into the season with the right attitude. I want you to memorize this. I am going to work hard at all times, not just for myself, but for my team. When players adopt this attitude, it can make the difference between a winning season and a losing season. Number 5, being lazy, or at least the appearance of being lazy. This one is probably a little obvious, but not every player has the self-awareness to see that they are being lazy, or at the very least, they look like they're being lazy. If you're not hustling, if you're not shagging balls, and if you look like you're not giving your best, then coaches will have the perception that you're lazy. And this is why it's important that you're hustling, that you are shagging balls, and that you're giving your absolute best so that coaches can have a positive perception of you. That was the top 5 reasons that players get cut from tryouts. I hope it brought you some clarity. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any of your own questions about volleyball, feel free to post them in the comments.